Cool. We've just missed that. So I'm going to click go live. They'll wonder what they might have got my version of that. Anyway, I think we are live. Wait for
live?
confirmation in the chat. Hopefully you can hear both of us. Hopefully things are nice and crystal clear as well. If they're not, do shout out and I will do my best to ignore it.
There we go. Yep, we are definitely live and I can hear sound. Hello, everybody.
Awesome. So a bit of a different stream tonight. We usually do one Godot a month, one Blender a month, one play stuff a month, and one big update a month. And today is a Godot day, but even better, it's a...
Today we are supporting the Go Godot Jam 4 jam in Godot 4. And I'll give you a link for that. So if you're interested in that, it's just starting. And I'll give you one of these. And there's Jelly. Hello, Jelly. There's Renda. Hello, Renda. There's Roderick. Hello, Roderick. So for those of you who haven't joined us before, hello, I'm Jan, and that's Mikey.
Hi. I'll be fielding the chats today.
We're here from Canopy Games. We make educational videos in Godot and Blender and some music programs that Mikey uses. And yeah, we like to make tutorials on games. And today we want to talk about how to make pretty particles in Godot. I'm probably going to be focused mostly on 3D, but we can do some 2D as well. It's basically the same thing with a couple of extra steps in 3D. I'm also going to click on Mikey's face on my screen so I don't see myself because that's really distracting, and I can focus on either Mikey or the camera rather than looking down here.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely wonderful. So what are we going to look at today?
I've had a lot of coffee, so if I'm speaking really fast, Mikey, poke me.
It worked. Yes, so today we're going to be playing in Godot 4. Hopefully everything will be nice and clear. As I say, Jan's streaming to me and then I'm going bloop out to the internet. And
thanks for that, Michael.
Welcome. And hopefully everything will be nice and clear. I know from experience when we're actually playing the game, it can sometimes pixelate a little as a lot of information is going through. That's just YouTube and compression, I guess. But it is. We're doing particles, so we start playing around in Godot.
Let's do some particles. Okay, first things first, let me share my screen. Share my entire screen. My screen is shared.
Nice.
All right, Michael, can you see my screen?
Whoop. Yes, we can. More importantly, can you guys who are watching see his screen? Which will take a few moments to come across.
Also very helpful, yes. And how stuttery is my video? Because on my screen, I keep freezing on your YouTube on my side. There we go.
Yes, you do.
Good, excellent. Let's just check everyone can see what we're doing.
It's just gone live my end, and
great.
I can't set the settings super high on this here, so everybody should be able to see at 1080p if you're watching it within the YouTube player. Doesn't give me that option.
Jelly says he can.
Perfect.
Fantastic. All right,
Gerard,
we have here a basic 3D scene. So it's just a node 3D that I've called base scene. And I've put that in one or more particles, and I've put in a world environment with a custom color in black, just so it's really easy to see what we're doing. I also want to talk a little bit about the assets I've brought in. So under textures, you'll see I've got particle textures and new particle textures. These particle textures, you might recognize they're part of Kenny's particle pack, which is quite hard to say. So I'm going to copy that and put that in the chat. Kenny's particle pack. There we go. I think I can. Yeah, I can put links in. I'm a mod, so that works.
Yeah.
So these textures are from Kenny's particle pack. I've also downloaded a free set of brushes or a couple of free abstract brushes for GIMP and just made some of these, right? So just some basic abstract blobs we can use.
Oh, nice.
We can make some fun shapes out of this. One more thing I've done, if I bring in, let's say, color rect, I have gone to low spec and I've added in some favorite colors. This is from the Gotham 30 palette pack, which I'll also link in case you want to play with it. I don't know why I always like doing that, but I do that a lot. Let's put that there as Gotham 30 color palette, which is spelled wrong, but I'm doing it. Okay. Let's talk about first steps, because setting up a particle is quite easy, but there's some things you can do to make things really awesome. So we're going to make a real, well, actually, before we make a basic, we'll do a quick rundown. I'm going to make a particle. And instantly you can see in 3D and in 2D, we've got CPU particles and GPU particles. We're going to be using GPU particles. CPU particles are great when you're using, when you're creating for mobile devices that may not have all of the tricks available, or for much older computers. I'm not doing that, so I'm going to be using GPU particles. I want all the bells and whistles. You'll also notice, first thing that happens is we get this big bounding box. It shows us where the particle will be. This can be very useful, but isn't for our purposes. It's just going to make everything look yellow. To get rid of that, I'm going to go to View, Gizmos, and find my GPU particles, and click that, and it's gone. The particle is still there. Well, right now there's no particle, but the particle emitter is still there, but the bounding box is gone. Just to make things a little bit simpler. Okay. In order for a particle to show in 3D, we need two things. We need a process material and a draw pass. If we were making a 2D particle, let me just bring that in. So GPU particles, we would just need a texture. And the reason we just need a texture for 2D is we won't be needing to tell it what kind of mesh it's making. It's a two-dimensional texture. It doesn't need to know, am I a plane, am I a cube, or the rest of it.
That makes sense.
In the vast majority of cases, the draw pass is going to want to be a quad. And if I put in, actually you can't see this against the black, can you? If I change the custom color real quick for, say, gray, there you can see we have a quad. It's only visible from one side. It's effectively a plane, but gray on gray is terrible. Let's go back to black. And we're going to want a process material. I'm going to do a particle process material. You can do a shader if you want. You don't have to. Just to see what's going on right now, let's turn that to, I don't know, red. So we have a red background with no lighting, and we have a single quad that is dropping over a course of a second and being copied 8 times. How do I know that? I go to my GPU particles. Thank you, GPU particles. No, that's a well. Go to my GPU particles.
Yay.
I click on the particle process. I go to gravity. I can see there's 8 of them. Click on time. They last a second, and they are moving down at negative 9.8. Okay. Before we play with our particle process materials, let's head over to our draw passes. Click on the quad, and there's some basic setup we want to do. It's all under material. So, well, you can change the basic size. If you want your particle to be bigger or smaller, you can make the quad bigger or smaller. But I want to go to here, and I want to make a new standard material, and let's get the party started. All right. All of our textures are using transparency. So very first thing, under transparency, let's go alpha. And for now, let's just bring in a standard Kenny circle. I don't know what we're going to make yet. I'm going to put that in under alpha so we can see it. All right. So right now we have no lighting. We have basic black and white image on red. We're going to make that look pretty in a second. There's a couple of other things I like to do. Blend mode is on mix. Pin that. We're going to change that in a minute. It's going to have a really cool effect. Go to shading. Let's go to unshaded. You don't necessarily need to do this, but if our particle wants to look like a light source rather than something that's being lit, you want to do unshaded. So if it's shaded, if it was doing per pixel, and I put, let's say, an omni light in here, and I move that over there, you can see the light reacting through the particle. This makes it look like a solid object. But if I make it unshaded, which I will do by clicking on the material.
I suppose it's a good way of thinking about it if you want your particle to actually be uninterrupted by the lighting in your scene, to make it more readable.
Well, what is the particle going to be, right? Like, is this a bit of dust from when you're landing, in which case it probably wants to be lit by the lighting?
Yeah.
Or is it a fireball, in which case it really doesn't want to be with the lighting? Putting it to unshaded makes it look like it's emitting light. Let's actually change this for the fire albedo. And to make this a little clearer, I'm going to go back to my process real quick. I'll turn off gravity. And Now that this is unshaded, I can go back to my world environment and turn that to black. There we go. So this just looks like a standard texture. You'll notice when I come to the side, we lose our particle. Because we're using a quad, that's going to be a problem. Now, using a quad or a plane is really good because there's much less, there's far fewer rather vertices in there. So we don't have to worry too much what we're saying. But let's make it so that we don't notice this is a plane. To do that, we go back to our material, scroll to the bottom, and we will see billboard. There's multiple kinds. We want particle billboard. If we just put billboard enabled, it won't access any of the particle information. Like any changes we make here won't affect the material. Don't want that. If we put it to Y billboard, the left and right will work fine, right? The image follows us around. Let's get rid of this Omni light. Don't need that anymore. So the image follows us around, but if I go up, that's not up, that's up. Let's slow down this camera. You'll notice how the up and down isn't following us. So we're going to go to particle billboard. We're going to go to our GPU particles, back to our material, back to our billboard, and I'm going to set that to particle billboard. So now, as I move up and down, the texture is always going to be pointing at the camera, which will give us lots and lots of things we can do. Be aware that by default, if I change the scale of the particle in the process material, it won't change the actual material, which means, let's say I change my scale to 0.25, nothing has changed. This can be annoying. To fix this, go to materials, go back to your billboards. If we're on particle billboard, go to keep scale. And now we're generating anywhere from 0.25 to 1. We've got this weird flickery thing going on. We can see the scales changing. That's ugly. We can do better than that. All right. One more thing I want to change. Vertex color, use as albedo. Why do we want to do this? Well, if we go to our process material and go to color, let's say I give this a nice red color. There's no red here. I can't see any red. Reason for that is we're using the material color. Don't want to use the material color. So I'm going to go to the material and use as albedo. And now we're using whatever we set here. So that's our basic setup. So as a real quick thing, I'm going to turn on my transparency. I will decide whether or not I need shading. I will pick my alpha, my albedo rather. I'll go to particle billboard and I'll go to keep scale on. I will probably want to change blend mode to add. And this starts giving us some really nice effects. Basically, instead of saying, oh, this red is already here, leave that red there, we're saying, this red is here, add this to whatever color information we have. So the more information we have, the brighter it is. You'll see it's brighter here in the middle. I'm going to take that off for now and add it later so we can see it properly where it's a bit more obvious. There we go. Let's play with some things that can make this really fun. Okay, so we have, let's turn our scale to 1:1. We have this simple little fire. It says fire. It looks like a splat to me. We have this splat. Some things we can do. We can say, go to angle. Rather than always bringing the image the same way, bring it in anywhere from, let's say, -90 to +90. This image is not rotating. So if I put it here, all it's doing is once per second, it's creating a new one within those parameters. Let's actually go the whole hog, say -180 to 180. So every second, we're getting a new one of these. Okay. Now, if we have 8 of those, it's starting to look like a stylized, like Sin City blood splat. That's not quite what I'm going for yet. Let's go back and add in that blend mode add. Okay. So it's a little brighter in the center. It looks like an energy source or a light source, but we can make this a little bit more fun. Some tricks I like to do. Under scale and under color, in fact, under a few of these, but these are the ones I like to play with a lot, you'll see we can create a gradient. So let's go to scale gradient. Actually, let's go to color gradient. So we're going to go color ramp, new gradient texture 1D, or one-dimensional color gradient. Click on it. And right now we're going from black to white. You'll notice these aren't white, these are red. This color gets added to that color. So I'm going to change this color to white so we can see what we're doing. And let's use our swatch. And I don't know, we'll start with pink and go red. Now, because we're adding this, in the center, it's going to get much, much brighter because there's always information there. Out at the edges, it's going to start looking a little bit more interesting. Other fun things we can do here, if we drag this point in, we click on the left to make a new point. It's just, what is the color at this point? It's whatever the first color is. Let's give that an alpha of 0. So the color's going to fade in. And we're starting to lose that jerky flicker information. Do the same thing at the end here. So I'm going to take my final position, drag it a little bit, left click to create a new one, and just drag the alpha down to 0. So now, instead of this jittery thing we had, we've got something a little bit more elegant. They're fading in and out. It's still a bit jittery, and there's some things we can fix with that. One of them is we're going to do the same trick with a scale. So go to scale curve, new curve texture. I'm not going to worry about the maximum value because I don't want to go below 0. You can do if you want. I don't want to go above 1. You can do if you want. If you want, this can go 10 times scale or 200 times scale. 0 1 is fine with me. I'm just going to right click to add a point at the 1 position. And again here, and let's just drag that down here.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay. So it's starting to move a bit more, but it still looks a bit more artificial. So here's my other trick. We're going to go to angular velocity. We're going to say you've got a minimum of -5 and a maximum of 5. And you know what? I think these need to be a bit slower. So let's go to time. There's actually 2 times. We want the first time. Let's say each particle to be 4 seconds. And give it a little bit of explosiveness so they don't all happen at the same time. Let's say there's more than 8 of them. Let's say there's 16.
That makes it much brighter in the middle, doesn't it?
Yeah. And we should now have something that looks a little bit more flowy, a little bit more interesting. Now, obviously, we want to tweak this, right, for whatever effect you're trying to make, but it's a good starting point. So we can go over here, and let's say this curve is going to slow down much more.
So is that the rate of change of the scale of the curve?
This is the scale over time.
Over the time you set earlier, so those 4 seconds?
Over the 4 seconds. So at the end of the 4 seconds, that is the scale. At the beginning of the 4 seconds, that is the scale.
Nice.
Okay. And we can change the scale minimum. So like this kind of breaks the illusion because the zoom in and out is too much, but it's a thing we can do. Okay. Now what we can do is we can start giving this a direction. You'll notice I turned off gravity. I usually don't worry too much about gravity. The reason for that is I can do the same thing in direction. Now, at the moment, by default, it's set to X, which is this red over here, with a 45-degree spread. If I give that an initial velocity of 1, that's what we start seeing. Not actually what we want, but it's the thing that can happen. Let's say we turn that to a 0 spread. We now have a line.
That's pretty awesome. That looks like you could use that as the smoke coming out of an exhaust or tire on a road, that sort of thing.
An excellent point.
Roderick says, by the way, that the ball, the orb that you had earlier, that looks like the corona of a jittery star. And I was thinking this would fit nicely in like a space game.
It would. Okay, I'm going to set all this up, and yeah, I like to use these things for space games. I've actually got an idea for a star. We'll do in a second. This is still my basic rundown. Let's say velocity of 0.25, maximum velocity of 0.5. We want a max lifetime of 2. And let's have a lot more of these. Let's say 64 particles.
That looks like a flame.
exactly what we're going for. Now, it's got quite a lot of detail. This fire image we're using is quite rough and ready. We could use a much smoother image, let's say the circle, which will give us a much more stylized effect. And if we go over to our scale, we could decide exactly how this shape looks. So we could say you're going to start a bit bigger, get right click here to remove this point. And let's say something like that. Now, by the way, it's starting to look a bit weird because I've got this explosive thing off. If I turn that off, this will suddenly become a lot more stable, right? One more trick we can do if we want to make this look like fire, scroll down the bottom of our process materials, and we can enable turbulence.
Nice. So that's a bit of wind blowing on it.
Now, this is too much.
Or
right?
a lot of wind, yeah.
We can play with that. Let's say noise strength of 0.25.
Ryan here says he was thinking of a steam locomotive.
Steam locomotive would work very well. And we could change the colors, right? So we have this going from pink to red, but we could go from...
Ooh.
To let's make a nice, like, what is that, methane flame?
Copper and lithium? Some sort of mix?
I don't know. It's been a long time since I did chemistry. Let's do it as a 1 second thing.
You know what we need to do? Yeah, we need to go around setting fire to more stuff to work out what
we just play more projects on board.
Yeah.
It's fine. And there we go. We have ourselves a little fire. All right, so this is all very basic. Let's try making some things. Now, someone mentioned a sun, right? Like a pulsing sun. Let's make one. So, brand new GPU particle. And let's just do the whole thing again. So we're just going to get process material, not doing a shader because I'm not smart enough to write shader code. New pass, quad mesh. And let's just remind ourselves what we do. So click on that, new material, standard material. And here we go. Transparency goes to alpha. Blend mode is going to be add. Shading is going to be unshaded. Vertex color is going to be albedo. I've done this a lot. This will become like second nature. Don't worry. What else do we want to do? Billboard mode. I always forget this one. Particles with keep scale on. Okay. So what do we want? We want something that doesn't move. And we want a nice circle. Is this a good circle? They're all pretty good, aren't they? Actually, I think I made a circle with some details on it. I'm going to use this one. Okay. So down to our material we go. Go to our albedo, and I'm going to bring in this energy hoop. And just to see what this looks like, let's just have one for now. So this is a single image that's not moving. It's being refreshed once every second. We may as well make a sprite. So trick number one. It's going to come in from minus 50. No, that's wrong. Minus 180 to a maximum of 180. And let's set in our color ramp. What color would you like this?
Purple.
Okay. So I'm going to start at a dark purple. And we're going to end at this light purple. I'm just going to drag this point over here, make a new point over there, and put in the alpha.
And that's just to help smooth the transition between the where it is and where it isn't. Yeah.
And we'll do the same with this one. So just move that over there, copy that. Be aware, by the way, that adding a new color and changing the alpha, it's still going to head for those color values. So before it's completely faded out, if you change it from white to green, you will get a second where it tries to go green. Now, that might be what you want. That can be a really cool effect. Like we can go to this pink and then fade out. Okay, so right now we have an hoop. It's not great. Let's put in a few more of these. Let's say there are 8 of them. Okay, it's starting to look nice and sparkly. I'm actually changing my mind about this energy hoop. Let's find a circle that isn't perfect. That's a nice imperfect circle. What else we got? Here we go. That's what we want, this light one. Let's bring in this light.
Ooh. Starting to look a bit more like a portal.
Right.
I love this. You can make so many things out of just the same.
And just playing with these things is great. Okay. Here's what we're going to use. We're going to use this one. I'm actually going to make the what's this, quad a little bit bigger. So let's say you are a 2x2. Okay. So we are generating this image every second. We are fading it in and out just with the color, not with the scale. And we're doing it 8 times. So it's overlapping. We're also adding. So if we had a lot more of these, it'd get a lot brighter. Let's stick with 8 for now, just so we can see what we're doing. And let us add in a little bit of variation on the scale. So same thing as before. I'm just going to go slightly up and slightly down. That might actually be too much. What I might do is use this and use the Bezier handles to actually overscale it towards the end.
It's one of the things, isn't it? When you whatever you're making, I mean, in this case, the particle, there's so much you can do in terms of just iterating again and again and again. I presume at any point you can like duplicate it over in the scene there and just and create a new one that you can just modify.
You can duplicate it. If you duplicate it and modify it, you'll duplicate them both because of the same process material.
You're making
okay. So if you're doing that, let's duplicate one, move that over here. What you're going to need to do is on your new one, go to process material, click on it, and make unique. And you'll probably want to do that with the pass as well. So make that unique. Now, when I change one, it'll change both because I did the wrong thing. Why did I do the wrong thing? Make unique. Pretty sure this works. Make it green. Oh, I know what I'm doing. Color ramp needs to be unique. There we go. To get around what I just did, no, that's not it either. I mean, it is that, but I'm messing up. Let's go make sub-resources unique. Okay, fine. That should make every single sub-resource of this unique. So let's just check if I'm right. Oh, right, I'm not. It worksn't. Is the color ramp that needs to be unique?
Is the first one just a copy of the second one at this point? Is that what's causing the problem?
It's an instance of, not a copy of. That's the point I'm making, right? We're using the same materials. It's often easier to start from scratch, but when you're duplicating something, if it has any sub-resources, those sub-resources are the same sub-resource.
Yeah.
They're
so
not
if you go and
copies
change
of.
the texture or anything else, the old one will also update.
Right. So it's often easier to make a new one. I don't really want to spend too much time bug fixing that, but that's where we're going. All right. Let's make this a little slower. So 4 seconds. Let's have 16 of them. Oh, here's a fun thing. I'm going to put this as a one shot. Now, let's say you're triggering this so that when a player does something or sees something, we just want this happening. Do you want it to fade up like this, or do you want it to just be happening? If you want it to just be happening, you need pre-process. So let's say pre-process, I'm going to say 2 seconds. Automatically calculate where would this have been after 2 seconds. And now when I press emitting, it's just there. This is really useful when, for example, in the RPG project we're making, we have these large instance dungeons that have a lot of torches. And rather than grind everyone's computer to a halt, if you're out of range of the torch, it's just going to disappear. If you can't see it, it's going to get cold. But that means when you turn a corner, the torches all suddenly turn on, rather than you turn a corner and there are lit torches. To get around that, we use pre-process. So you turn the corner and the torches pretend they've been lit the whole time. All right, let's take that off, put emitting back on. And yeah, here we go. We have a nice pink sun star thing. And what you're saying about the image is absolutely true. So let's say we take this, let's take this magic image. We can get a very similar style, but much spikier.
I like that. I like that
Right?
a lot.
This reminds me a lot of I forget the name of the game. Unexplored, I think it is. Unexplored. But they're very sort of
the top down 2D.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah.
It has that sort of polygonal style to it. And you know, you could do this with whatever. So you could put in a muzzle flash and you've got these weird abstract shapes. Or if you want abstract shapes, let's actually make an abstract one.
That's pretty awesome.
So just by playing with these images, you can take the same thing and really make it a lot more intriguing. I'm going to keep mine with this light one because I like that. Okay, so there is, actually that one doesn't work at all. That's not moving. Actually, this light 2 one was kind of nice. Let's make this a bit faster. So 1 second again. And there we go. We have a nice little reactor core.
Oh, make it blue, make it blue, make it blue.
Make it blue, make it blue. Don't forget, we're adding, so we have to use quite dark colors here. Let's get rid of you. All right, blue. Nice deep blue. Heading to a slightly lighter blue. And remember, it's heading towards a pink here.
Oh, yes, because it's going towards the pink, but because you turn the alpha down, you can't see that it's pink.
Correct. So if I turn the alpha up, you'll see it very briefly. It's going to flicker. So let's make that nice navy blue. There we go. Right, let's go to my gizmo. Let's get rid of the origin and the grid.
Oh, that really gives you freedom.
It's fun, isn't it? All right.
A lot of fun.
So there's one stuff we can do here. Let's make a stylized file like we do with the torches. Okay. I'm going to keep that where it is and just move to the side and make a new one. So brand new GPU particle. Mikey's in charge of telling me if we have any things that people are saying, by the way, because I can't see. We're not playing with sub-emitters yet. We will do. Process materials. Draw pass. Quad mesh. Great. Okay, new material. Standard material. Ready? Let's go. We're going with alpha and add unshaded. Using albedos with a billboard particle on keep. Yep, that's all. Great. Okay. Over to our particle. Gravity off. Over to our material. I've put the albedo in. We're just going to use a simple circle. It doesn't have to be a circle. I'm using a circle just because it looks good. Let's make a, here, I'm going to rename this one Blue Pulse so I know what it is. Blue reactor. No, this is a reactor. There it is. This one is going to be flames. Okay. Our flames need to move up. So to do that, we've got gravity off. Our direction is going to be 1. And initial velocity of, let's say, 1. Okay, that's very exciting. Let's say initial velocity of, I turned the initial velocity off again. Okay, so initial velocity with a spread of 45 doesn't really work for me. Let's say a spread of 15.
I'd say, yeah, that looks good.
So scale curve. When I'm working with fire, I like to do the scale curve first because I want something that looks a bit more like this. Add a new point in here, right-clicking there, because we don't want to be the same size there, and it's just fading to 0 at the very end, which gives it that nice little embers thing. Because we are adding, our colors should just work. So let's try that. I need a color ramp. There we go. And we'll start with a nice deep red. We're going to end with a orange, I guess. And in the middle, we'll put a nice yellow. Yeah, if I can find a nice yellow. This palette doesn't have a nice yellow. That's very green. Let's find a nice yellow. Okay. Getting there. I might put a little bit of damping. So we don't, right now, this is very, very regular. I say some of these should slow down. And let's give it a little bit of turbulence. Yeah, when I say a little bit of turbulence, actually, if we could just noise scale of 2 and noise strength of 0.25. So what this is doing is it's generating a noise texture and applying that to the direction it's going in. That's still a bit too strong, isn't it? Let's say noise scale of 1.5. Great. And let's say we don't really want it a bit pushing down. We just want to be forward and left and right. So I'm going to set my Y to 0, so there is no noise change on the Y. Apparently that's not actually what it's fine. Okay. So we have the beginnings of a fire, but I think we can do better. Let's say there's not 8 of them, there's 64 of them.
Oh, that's starting to, yeah, I like that.
And let's say we want a bit more of a, no, that's the wrong direction.
It's probably a bit too much turbulence, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I just turned turbulence off for now. It's just throwing everything off. All right. Right now, this spread is getting in the way. So if we go to our initial direction, let's turn spread to 0. And that lets us see what we're trying to do. So our scale isn't quite right. Flames get thicker way close to the bottom. And then get fatter again, don't they? So it should go more like that. In fact, if anything, let's remove this one and just drag that. Ooh, whoa.
Good old handles on a Bezier curve. There we go.
Yeah. Okay, a little bit better. Things we can do. Radial acceleration. This is how far out is getting pushed, right? This might not be great, because if you do this, they sort of get pushed from the center. But you can push them into the center. Let's see what that looks like on our reactor. Go to our reactor, radial acceleration. So as they start going, they're going to get accelerated to a -2 with a maximum of -1. And you'll see it's starting to destabilize a bit more. All right, so we have this almost candle flame. It's not quite realistic yet. What do we want to do about that? I think the velocities need to change. Right now, they're too steady. So it's going to be minimum velocity of 0.25 and a maximum of 0.5. And suddenly it started to look a bit more irregular. We could put a little bit of spread back in, say 5. We could also put in, would tangential work? Let's try it.
Can I suggest some colors for a quote unquote
Absolutely.
realistic candle flame?
Mm-hmm.
So if we go to our gradient here, if we start it off of like a deep purpley blue.
Sure.
And then getting brighter in the middle, like we've got, and then maybe out to a deeper red towards the end rather than an orange. And of course, we can move that slider or add an extra color in to.
I mean, sure, I like that. One thing I might do is put in a bit more randomness
that order was the other way around, but it's actually worked out really awesome. Don't change it.
nice,
It's awesome. Don't touch it. No.
All right. You said blue at the bottom, orange at the top. That's what I've done.
It's awesome. I like it.
It needs a little something. Like this is the point where I start tweaking to see,
I think they're spreading out a bit too much at the top.
Yeah, so this angle isn't actually the solution we want. We could add in more of a radial thing, but that's just going from the center. That doesn't help us. Let's try linear acceleration.
Remember some of these settings. This would look amazing on a mag racer coming out the back of it.
It would. Velocity, no. You know what? I think turbulence is the answer. Let's just put in some turbulence. But I want to put in very little turbulence. Little turbulence. Teensy turbulence. So let's say 0.1. Nope, come back. Noise strength of 0.1.
Jelly says purple. It needs purple. There's purple there.
More purple. Now, don't forget the colors you're picking here are not actually what's going to show on screen because we're adding them, right? Like, if you want them to look like that, you'll have to put a light source in, like so, on the light. And let's move you to here. And then we can go back to our flame and make it shaded. So it actually takes light information. You don't want light information for a light source like a flame. But if you did, you'd end up with something that looks a bit more like.
I mean, this would be great for instance, something emitting smoke and you're coming past with a flashlight.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
So these are the kinds of steps we'll do. Now, when I'm making a torch flame, I'll tend to go with a lot more of these particles. In fact, let's do that. Let's undo the last few changes and take our light away. And let's turn this into 64 is fine. 1 second. And let's increase our velocity. So let's say minimum velocity of 1, maximum velocity of 2, maximum velocity of 5. And let's get rid of our randomness. We don't want that at all. Our explosiveness, rather. We want a constant. And let's bring back our fire colors.
Oh, nice.
So it's a bit more like a jet flame than anything else because I've got the speed and the lifetime set that way. If I set this to 2 seconds opposed to 1 second, we'll get a slightly different reaction, but you get the idea, right? Now, if you're doing this with fire, what you really need is a light source in your fire.
Like so you got a stable bit.
Well, the way it freezes light, let me put in a mesh.
Oh, yes, of course. If you're in a room, you would need it actually to have a light source in it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So let's say we've got this lovely box here. If I don't have a light here, let's bring in a work light. If we don't have a light here, this doesn't actually read as fire, right? For this to read as fire, we want to do something like this with some shadow. And we might make this a little bit bigger. There we go. And this will now start reading a bit more as fire. That 2 seconds was a mistake, wasn't it? Let's put that back to 0.75. So okay, that's how I would do something like a torch. Let's check how we do it for time. Oh, actually way slower. Stable diffusion. Okay. One more thing I want to make before we finish. Let's make an electrical pulse.
Ooh.
Because this is quite tricky. Not in terms of like what are the steps, but like what's the look we're going for.
So when you say an electrical pulse, do you mean like lightning?
Yeah, like a short circuit. So here is our particle, and here we go. New process material. Boom, 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 boom. New pass. It's going to be a quad. It is currently taking the light information from that one, which is orange. Let's actually remove that one now. And we don't need this mesh as well. Okay. This needs material. And here we go again. So new transparency, alpha. Let's put this on add. It's going to be unshaded. We're going to use the vertex color as an albedo. Let's put in one of these sparks. Spark 4. Okay. And we need this billboard on, particle billboard. Remember, it must be particle billboard. We want the scale. Okay. I'm going to call this spark. And just so we can see what we're doing, we'll have just one. And let's turn off gravity. And let's go over this side. Okay. Things to do. Number one, let's pick some colors. I'm going to stick with our color ramp trick, even if this was going to be a little bit subtle. So we're going to start with this nice blue. I'm going to end with this nice teal. And we probably don't need to fade this in and out because this is going to be quite a short pulse, right? Instead, what we're going to do is take our scale. Actually, let's add in a few more of these so we can see what we're doing. 8. We need our angle to be minus 180 or 180. And in fact, we don't need 8. We need like 4 of them.
Quick question for you, Jan. Why not 0 to 360? Why minus 180 to 180?
No reason. I just like negative 180s.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. It's a thing you can do. All right, so we've got this little thing. One way to make this easier, remember, electricity tends to move quite quickly. So let's say 0.25. No, not. There we go. And we're going to add a few more of these. That's something to look like water. Let's keep this a 4. And I think these colors are too close together. All right. If we pre-process this in at 0.1 second, I mean, it's a one shot, there's a little impact. Let's take that off and keep it going. I kind of want this to be a bit brighter in the middle. Am I adding this properly? I am adding this. It's unshaded. All right. I just need more of them or a different color.
I'd pick that lighter blue. If you make it just a little bit lighter when they're overlapping, it should add up because it's about halfway at the moment. If you have 2 of them and they're both bright, it still won't add up to 1. That looks better.
Yep. Okay. Let's change a little bit on the scale. And what I might do here is just change this to be 0.9 and 1.25.
There's a bit of randomness there in the scale.
That's
nice. Yeah.
I mean, really what this needs is a sound effect and a light source, right? That's what you want. But we're starting to get to the point where this is looking like it's intentional. Now, there's a few tricks we could do here. We could have a next pass. So
Jelly clocked that you were humming the theme to the Teletubbies. You've been saying certain things, and in a normal stream, I would have chirped up and started singing along, but it's been very difficult. Very difficult.
Okay, so in our material, we go to the next pass, and we can make a new standard material. So what this is going to do is it's going to use the material for one pass, and the second pass it'll use the next material. So what happens if we take this new material and do the same tricks, but we add in a different spark image? So that's unshaded, billboard, particle billboard, and on. Do I have everything there? Nope. Yeah, that's everything. Okay, great. So just to see what that looks like, I'm going to copy this and then clear it. One. There's two. Right? So instead of always the same image, we're starting to get different ones. And we can do the same thing again. So I'm actually going to paste this one as the next pass. So we now have 3 passes. Make this unique. And then just change the albedo. So let's say we're going to use Spark 2 for this one.
How many passes can we have?
I have no idea, as many as you have. So using passes like this is a great way of adding a lot less predictability to what you're making. I mean, it is still predictable, but it feels less predictable. In fact, let's try Spark 5.
Oh, wow.
I actually don't like that too much.
It's very chaotic. It also, because of the way that's better. The way that the spark was angled there with like 3 bends in it, it kind of looked like legs.
Kind of look what? Sorry.
Like legs with feet on the end.
Yep. Did I put this in the wrong one? Make unique. Yes, I did. Okay, cool. I feel like that third pass is just getting in the way. Let's just
There's bright blue square.
Okay. So we have just a single pass right now. It should be this albedo. There is this albedo. And then this next pass as the second one. Okay, that's what we want. Other things we could do, right? And we don't really have time to explore them too much. They're a little bit out of scope. But we could add in collision. Ooh. So what if we have a GPU particle collision box or sphere? Let's do a sphere. Okay. And I'm going to give this a radius of 0.25 meters. And I'm just going to drag this into our fire.
I take it you need to tell the particles, oi, you're going to react to a physics body.
Yes. Well, it's not actually a physics body.
Oh, it's not?
Nope. Collision. That is correct. That's fine. This should be enough. It's probably here we go. Yeah. So if I put this up to 0.25, you can see they're being bent out of shape. Now they're already being bent when they hit the outside. It's actually not the best example of this, is it? Let's do 0.5. Why is this useful? Character walking through flames. Put that there. We don't have to use collisions. We could also use attractors. So let's get rid of this.
So you could get that portal thing that we've got in order to attract the flames.
Mm-hmm. Now, this does need to be set up for an attractor, I believe. So sort of flames. Attraction interaction is enabled. Oh, yeah, here we go.
Strength is negative.
Many.
We've got our particle hoover.
Yep. This strength is too high, so we can make it a little bit more subtle. And move that towards our fire.
I take it's falling off with the square of the distance or something along those lines.
Probably I put the attenuation too high as well. It's just a fun effect you can do. It's really useful for things like lightning bolts or energy particles or anything like that, where you don't actually want to model in a physics projectile, but you want a particle projectile. This will let you do that. You can get some really weird results when you're not paying attention, though. Like, actually, let's keep that at 2 meters. That's a strength of 64. Cat said so too. So these are some of the things you can play with, right? Particles now have collisions. It's great if you want to have like rain bouncing off stuff. That works really well. One more thing you can do is have a sub-emitter. And
So is
I
that?
don't think we're.
Yeah, we probably won't have time to do that. So what is a sub-emitter? Obviously, it's an emission that's a sub-emitter, but what happens and how does it work?
That's a good question. So let's say we've got our flame here. Actually, let's say we're going to take our reactor and we'll set sub-emitter to be our spark. Now, if I head down to sub-emitter and enable it, is it constant? Is it at the end? So each particle, once it's done, now becomes a lightning particle. Now, because these ones are a very different speed, it looks very different, right? But this is how you would do that. How many of them at the end do you want to do? Let's say we're going to do 6. Let's say you can also just do it at collision. So they don't do anything unless they collide with a particle collider.
You could do fireworks like this, couldn't you? You could have a single particle go up, and then at the end of its life, it emits an explosion.
I have done a water particle, and when it hit a collision that I put around a fire, I put a steam particle.
Nice.
Right? So there's a lot of fun things you can do here. Obviously, we don't have a collider in here, so it's not going to work. Let's say constant. And our reactors, there's 16 of them over. Is cat? 1 moment. 16 of them over at 0.25 thing. So yeah, that's one way you can have multiple particles happen at the same time. I wouldn't actually put the spark in the center there, but it's a thing you could do. You can play with the what do you call it? So you can play with the. Oh, my brain is not working. There we go. You can play with the velocities and so forth. They're really good. Speaking of velocities, one thing you might want to do, and this will be my last point before we take any questions. One moment, cat. Under particle flags, not on particle flags. Where's my? I've lost it. Local coordinates. Here we go. If you turn on local coordinates, the particle stays relative to its source. If you turn them off, you get trails.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it depends on what effect you want, right? Like if I move this sphere, do I want that effect or do I want where are they? Local coordinates. Do I want this effect? That can throw people quite a lot, especially when you're trying to do like jet trails or anything like that. You don't actually want them staying there. You want them on the racer. And that, I think, is a good place to wind this up and see if we have any questions. I'm going to switch off share, and I'm going to give my cat some water because he won't stop meowing.
I've gone back to us. That he's singing the song of his people. I need water. Yes, so awesome work there, Jan. He's not here. I'm congratulating him. It's fine. Has anybody got any questions about particles in Godot
I don't know
4?
if you guys could hear his cat, but I certainly could. Can a sub-emitter have a sub-emitter? There's a sub-emitter and so on. Yes, it can. It absolutely can. Obviously, you're going to get diminishing returns, right? Apart from anything else, particles are pretty cheap, but they're not free. Having them as quads in billboard mode helps a lot, but you can have them as spheres or any other mesh. Like that's the thing you can do.
The other thing to bear in mind is if you do stack subparticles, you could end up with one of those situations where you have a compounding effect, and even though you might only have 1 or 2 beginning ones, that could spiral out of control.
Mm-hmm. Very true. I stopped sharing my screen, right, so I can put my chat over there.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I could make it so they're using Yan GPT.
Yes, your voice midway through's gone not like distorted, but like echoey, robotic. Like there's two of you.
I think it's because the rain happened. Every time it rains, for some reason, my wireless starts dropping, and it's happened in the last 2 places I've lived. So who knows?
I blame the. It's the UK. You can genuinely blame the weather for most things.
You can. So yeah, that's our little particles party. We made 3 particles. I hope you had fun, and you learned some stuff. But
I did. I always find these really, really interesting because I don't get the time to play.
Ryan, this might be a topic for later. Is there a way to have 2 particles synchronize, say an energy orb flying and trailing flame or smoke in a different color? So yes, subparticles is a great way of doing that. You could also have child nodes, right? So you can have a parent node, and then directly underneath that is a child node. Subemitters probably solves the problem more elegantly in that way. But if you wanted to say orbiting around it, you could do a child node and an animation player, or you could just do a subparticle and then it has an orbit velocity on it, so it knows to go around a certain point.
That makes sense.
Any other questions, concerns, thoughts, comments, jingles, or interpretive dances? You should absolutely go check out Go Godot Godot Jam 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 4. Here it is. I always have trouble saying it. And you should also check out Canopy Games. That's us. The links are in the doobly doo. Yeah, I'm Jan, and that's Mikey.
Hi. Awesome. I really enjoyed that. That was a great dive into particles and just particles in general. It's a great starting point for, as we saw there, you could create so many things from the flames to the smoke trails, whatever. And I want to play with Godot particles now for the rest of the evening, but
go for it. I need to eat.
I should do other stuff. But
I need food. I'm hungry.
Definitely. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and I hope you've been informed as much as I have as well.
I hope you had fun. I hope you check out the jam and check out our courses if you feel like it, and check out of hotels, and yeah, just basically check out.
I don't have anything to add to that this evening.
No, we haven't really figured out how to end this stream, have we? We're just sort of like rambling,
saying goodbye for the next half hour. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I will see you all next week, where it'll be more of a Blender focus. And bye.
Bye.
I can't do it while I'm waving, so
That's it.